The jar of imported olive oil shattered against the floor a split second before Amara's body slammed into the refrigerated dairy case. Glass exploded. Milk cartons burst open, flooding the aisle in white. Pain shot through her shoulder, her hip, the side of her face. For a moment she couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only register the cold glass against her cheek and the familiar voice above her, dripping with contempt. Welcome back. If this story pulled you in, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss what is coming next. I have another unforgettable story dropping tomorrow, and while you're here, jump into the comment section and let me know where you are watching from. I love seeing our community from all over the world. Now, let's go back to it. Still playing the victim, I see. Marcus Wellington stood over her, his expensive suit immaculate, his handsome face twisted into something ugly. You always were pathetic. The upscale Seoul grocery store fell silent except for the hum of refrigeration units and Amara's ragged breathing. Other shoppers froze mid-reach for organic vegetables and artisan breads, phones already rising to capture the violence unfolding in the dairy aisle. Amara's vision blurred, not from the impact though her head throbbed, but from the sudden, brutal transport back to another time, another version of herself. The woman who had loved this man, the woman who had worked 3 jobs to pay his rent, the woman who had lost everything because of him. Marcus, baby, let's just go. A blonde woman in designer athleisure appeared beside him, her manicured hand on his arm. She's not worth it. You're right. Marcus stepped back, brushing off his jacket as if Amara had somehow contaminated him. She never was. Amara pushed herself up slowly, her hands slipping in spilled milk. Her simple black dress was soaked. Blood trickled from a cut on her cheek, but something else was rising inside her, hot and fierce. Something that hadn't existed 3 years ago when Marcus had thrown her out of his apartment, pregnant and penniless. You put your hands on me, she said quietly, her voice shaking not with fear but with barely contained rage. You actually put your hands on me. Marcus laughed. What are you going to do about it? Call the police? Tell them your sob story? He leaned down, his voice dropping to a cruel whisper only she could hear. No one believed you then, no one will believe you now. You're nothing, Amara, you've always been nothing. But before Amara could respond, before she could unleash 3 years of survivor's fury on the man who had nearly destroyed her, movement exploded from 3 different directions. 2 men in dark suits materialized on either side of Marcus. A third positioned himself between Amara and her attacker. Jean Woo, the head of her security detail, spoke into his wrist with lethal calm. Target acquired. Mrs. Kong is injured. Alert Mr. Kong immediately. Marcus's face went pale then red. Mrs. Kong, what the hell is this? The store manager rushed over, his tablet already pulled up with security footage. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to come with me. We have multiple cameras that captured your assault on this customer. Assault? She probably staged this whole thing, the blonde woman shrilled, her voice climbing higher. She probably threw herself into that case. Marcus would never. Ma'am, Jean's voice cut through her protests like a blade through silk. I suggest you remain quiet. My employer is on his way and he's not going to be interested in excuses. Amara's phone buzzed in her purse, somehow miraculously intact despite the fall. Her hands trembled as she pulled it out. The screen showed an incoming call, Min Jun. Her husband, her protector, the underground king of Seoul who had found her bleeding and broken in an alley 2 years ago and had given her not just his name but his entire world. She answered, Min Jun. Are you hurt? His voice was ice wrapped in silk, the tone he used when someone was about to die. I'm okay, just some cuts and bruises, but Min Jun. I know who he is. Of course he did. Min Jun knew everything within 30 seconds of it happening. I know what he did to you, I know what he is to you. Was, Amara corrected softly, aware of Marcus's eyes on her, his expression shifting from contempt to confusion to something that might have been the first stirrings of fear. What he was to me. I'm 7 minutes away. Min Jun's voice gentled, but underneath was a promise of violence that made Amara's pulse quicken for entirely different reasons. Can you stand? Yes. Then stand, sweetheart, stand and let him see what he lost, what he threw away, what he could never deserve in 1,000 lifetimes. Amara rose to her feet, ignoring the pain screaming through her body. Jean offered his hand, but she shook her head. This she needed to do herself. She straightened her spine, lifted her chin, and met Marcus's stare with eyes that no longer held tears or pleading or any trace of the broken girl he remembered. "Who are you?" Marcus demanded, but his voice had lost its confidence. "What kind of game are you playing?" Before you find out what happens next, make sure you're subscribed to this channel and hit that notification bell. Trust me, you don't want to miss how this story unfolds. Now back to the story. Game? Amara's laugh was bitter. "You think this is a game, Marcus? You think I plan to run into you in a grocery store to have you assault me in front of witnesses? I barely touched you, you're being dramatic just like always." "The security footage says otherwise," the store manager interjected nervously, glancing between Amara and the armed men now securing the perimeter. "Sir, I really must insist." 7 minutes, Jean said quietly, checking his watch. "Mr. Kong will be here in 7 minutes. "Who the fuck is Mr. Kong?" Marcus's bravado was cracking now, his eyes darting to the exits where more of Min Jun's men had appeared, blocking any escape. Amara smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "My husband." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Marcus's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "You're married. For 2 years now." "To who? Some convenience store owner who gave you a pity job?" He laughed, but it sounded forced. "God, you really did land on your feet by latching onto whoever would take you in." "You know nothing about my life, Marcus. You know nothing about who I am now." "I know everything about you." His voice rose, attracting more attention from the growing crowd of shoppers. "I know you're a manipulative little—" "Choose your next words very carefully," Jean warned, his hand moving to something under his jacket. But Marcus was too far gone in his own anger and confusion to recognize the danger closing in around him. "I know you worked those pathetic waitressing jobs and couldn't even afford decent clothes," Marcus continued, his voice dripping with venom. "I know you threw yourself at me, got yourself pregnant thinking you could trap me into marriage. Well, it didn't work then, and whatever con you're running now won't work either." The words hit like physical blows. Amara felt her breath catch, felt the old shame trying to claw its way back up her throat. But then she felt the weight of her wedding ring under her glove, felt the presence of Jean and Taeyang flanking her, felt the certainty of Min Jun's love surrounding her like armor. "Is that what you tell yourself?" she asked softly. "Is that the story you've convinced yourself is true?" "It is true. You were nothing when I met you and you're nothing now, no matter what lies you've told some desperate man to get a ring on your finger." "Marcus, we should really go." The blonde was tugging at his arm now, her earlier bravado evaporating as she noticed the caliber of men surrounding them. "This is getting out of hand." "No," Marcus shook her off. "I want to know what kind of scam she's running. I want to know who this supposed husband is." "You'll meet him soon enough," Jean said. 5 minutes. The store's automatic doors whooshed open. More men in dark suits entered, their movements coordinated and precise. They weren't store security. They weren't police. They were something else entirely, something that made the other shoppers start backing away, instinctively recognizing predators in their midst. "What is this?" Marcus's voice had gone high and thin. "What the hell is going on?" "You really don't know, do you?" Amara found herself almost pitying him. "Almost. You have no idea who I am now, who I'm married to, what world you just walked into when you put your hands on me." "Stop being cryptic. You think you can intimidate me with some hired muscle? My father owns the Wellington investment firm. I'm engaged to Jessica Chong, daughter of one of the biggest tech CEOs in Korea. You think you can threaten me?" "I'm not threatening you, Marcus." Amara took a step closer, ignoring the pain in her ribs. "I don't need to. My husband will do that for me." A black SUV pulled up outside, followed by two more. Through the store's windows, Amara watched her husband emerge from the middle vehicle. Kong Min Jun moved with the lethal grace of an apex predator, his tailored suit fitting him like a second skin, his expression carved from ice. Even from a distance, even through glass, his presence was overwhelming. The store's atmosphere shifted, changed, became something electric and dangerous. "Oh God," the store manager whispered, his face going gray. "Oh God, that's Kong Min Jun." Marcus frowned. "Who?" But the manager had already dropped into a bow, his hands shaking. Other employees followed suit. Several shoppers pulled out their phones not to record anymore but to frantically text or call, spreading word of who had just arrived. Min-jun entered the store with 6 men flanking him. He moved through the aisles like he owned them, like he owned the entire building, the entire city, the entire world. His eyes found Amara immediately, scanning her from head to toe, cataloging every injury with a precision that promised retribution. Then his gaze shifted to Marcus. The temperature in the store seemed to drop 10 degrees. "You," Min-jun said quietly, his voice carrying despite its softness, "you're the one who put his hands on my wife." It wasn't a question. Marcus opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The man who had been so confident, so cruel just moments ago seemed to shrink under Min-jun's stare. "I asked you a question." Min-jun's voice remained quiet, conversational even. That made it more terrifying. "Are you the one who assaulted my wife in a grocery store, who shoved her into a refrigerated case, who made her bleed?" There was a misunderstanding, she. "Yes or no?" "She fell, I barely touched." Min-jun moved. One moment he was 10 feet away. The next he was inches from Marcus, having crossed the distance so quickly it seemed impossible. He didn't touch the other man, didn't need to, his presence alone was violence. "I'm going to ask you one more time, and if you lie to me, if you make excuses, if you blame my wife for your actions, I will make you wish you had never been born." Min-jun's voice was a whisper now, but everyone in the store heard it. "Did you put your hands on her?" Marcus's face had gone from red to white. A wet stain spread across the front of his expensive trousers. He'd actually pissed himself. "Yes," he whispered, "but I didn't know that she was mine." Min-jun's smile was terrible to behold. "That should have mattered. You should only refrain from assaulting women if they belong to someone powerful." "No, I meant Jean." Min-jun didn't look away from Marcus. "Take my wife home, have Dr. Shin examine her. Every scratch, every bruise, every mark on her body is to be documented." Min-jun, Amara's voice stopped him. "I need to tell you something first, about him, about what he did to me before." Her husband's expression softened as he looked at her, the ice melting into something warm and infinitely gentle. "You don't have to, sweetheart, not here, not now." "I do." Amara took a shaky breath. "Because you need to know who he is, what he is, and he needs to hear me say it. He needs to know that I survived him." Min-jun studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. He removed his jacket and draped it over her shoulders, the silk lining still warm from his body. Then he positioned himself beside her, a silent pillar of support. "3 years ago," Amara began, her voice stronger now, "I met Marcus Wellington at a charity event where I was working as a server. He was charming, attentive. He said he'd never met anyone like me. He said I was special." Marcus's face flushed. "Amara, don't." "Quiet." Min-jun didn't raise his voice. "I didn't need to." Marcus's mouth snapped shut. "He pursued me for weeks. Flowers, texts, surprise visits to the restaurant where I worked. It felt like a fairy tale. A man from a wealthy family wanting someone like me, a girl working 3 jobs just to afford a studio apartment in a bad neighborhood." Amara's hands clenched in Min-jun's jacket. "I fell in love with him completely, stupidly." "This is irrelevant," Marcus tried again, his voice desperate. "Ancient history, I don't see what." "You'll see." Min-jun's tone could have frozen fire. "Keep talking, sweetheart." 6 months into our relationship, Marcus moved into my apartment. He said his place was being renovated, just temporary, he promised, except he never paid rent, never paid utilities. I covered everything while working breakfast shifts at a cafe, lunch shifts at the restaurant, and overnight inventory at a warehouse. The blonde girlfriend made a small sound of disbelief. "Marcus, you said you'd never lived with anyone before me." "Shut up, Jessica," Marcus hissed. "Oh, you're Jessica Chong." Amara looked at the other woman with something like sympathy. "He's told you he's never been in love before, hasn't he? That you're the first woman who's ever made him want to settle down." Jessica's face went pale. "He told me the same thing," Amara continued. "While I was buying groceries with money I'd earned working 70-hour weeks, while he was sitting at home playing video games and telling me his startup was about to take off, while I was pregnant with his child." Min-jun's entire body went rigid beside her. His hand found hers, squeezed gently. She squeezed back, drawing strength from his touch. "You were pregnant." Min-jun's voice was very, very quiet. "I found out 3 months into him living with me. I was terrified, but also hopeful. I thought maybe this would bring us closer, that we'd be a family. I worked even harder, saving every penny I could for the baby. Amura's voice cracked, but she pushed on. I told him on a Tuesday night I'd made his favorite dinner. I had the ultrasound picture ready. I was smiling when I showed him. What did he do? Min Jun asked, though his tone suggested he already knew and that Mukaz was a dead man walking. He looked at me like I'd ruined his life, he said. Amura had to stop, had to breathe through the memory. He said I'd done it on purpose, to trap him, to lock down a meal ticket. He called me a gold-digging whore and told me to get rid of it. Jesus Christ, someone in the crowd whispered. I refused. I told him we could make it work, that I'd keep working, that he didn't have to worry about money. And you know what he did, Mukaz? Amura finally looked directly at her ex-fiancé. You know what you did. Mukaz was shaking his head, his face a mask of panic and rage. You're lying, you're making this up too. You left that night while I was sleeping. You took the $3,000 I'd saved for the baby, you took my laptop, you took the television I'd bought, you even took the coffee maker, and you left me a note that said thanks for the free ride. The store was silent except for the hum of refrigerators and Amura's ragged breathing. That's not all though, is it? She took a step toward Mukaz, and this time he retreated. Because a week later, when I tried to call you, when I was desperate and scared and still foolishly hoping you'd come back, your new girlfriend answered your phone. You'd already moved on, already found your next target, someone with more money, I assume. You have no proof of any of this, Mukaz said, but his voice wavered. Don't I? Min Jun pulled out his phone, tapped a few buttons. I had my people do some research the moment I knew who you were. Want to know what they found? He didn't wait for an answer. Evelyn Park, 2019, you lived with her for 4 months, stole $8,000 and disappeared. Munsa Kum, 2020, 6 months, $12,000 plus jewelry. Sarah Chun, 2021, 3 months, $5,000. Should I continue? Jessica made a choking sound. No, that's not. Mukaz, tell them they're wrong. But Mukaz said nothing, could say nothing. After he left, Amura continued, her voice stronger now, I lost everything. The stress, the work hours, the malnutrition because I couldn't afford to eat properly while saving money. I lost the baby at 4 months, hemorrhaged so badly I nearly died on the bathroom floor of my apartment. Min Jun's hand tightened on hers. She could feel the rage vibrating through him, barely leashed. I couldn't work, lost my jobs, couldn't pay rent, got evicted, spent 6 months living on the streets, sleeping in subway stations and shelters when I could get a bed. Amura's voice dropped to a whisper. I wanted to die, Mukaz. You broke me so thoroughly that I prayed every night not to wake up. But you did wake up, Min Jun said softly, his eyes never leaving Mukaz's face. And 2 years ago I found you, bleeding in an alley after someone had tried to rob you, and I took you home. He saved my life, Amura said, gave me a reason to live again, helped me heal, loved me when I thought I was unlovable, married me when I thought I'd never trust anyone again. She took a breath and spoke the words she'd dreamed of saying for 3 years. So yes, Mukaz, I survived you. I survived your cruelty, your theft, your abandonment. I survived losing our child. I survived homelessness and trauma and wanting to die. And now I'm standing here married to one of the most powerful men in Seoul while you, she smiled coldly, while you're about to lose everything. Make sure you hit that like button if you're Team Amura and drop a comment telling me what you think Mukaz deserves. Trust me, this is just getting started. Min Jun turned to Jean, clear the store, everyone out except my men, the manager and these two. He gestured to Mukaz and Jessica. Jean nodded, and within minutes the grocery store was empty except for Min Jun's security team positioned at every exit. The manager stood trembling by the customer service desk, his tablet clutched to his chest like a shield. Here's what's going to happen, Min Jun said, his voice conversational again, which somehow made it more terrifying. We're going to have a private conversation in the back office. You're going to tell me everything about your pathetic life, and then I'm going to destroy it piece by piece while you watch. You can't do this, Mukaz said, but his voice shook. My father will. Your father? Min Jun laughed, and it was not a pleasant sound. Your father, Robert Wellington, who runs Wellington Investment Firm out of the Gangnam Finance Building, the same Robert Wellington who owes my associate Park Sung-ho approximately 40 million won in gambling debts. Mukaz's face went gray. Oh, you didn't know about that? Interesting. I wonder what else Daddy hasn't told you. Min Jun circled Mucka's like a shark. Let me tell you what I know about you, Mucka's Wellington. You're 32 years old. You work at your father's firm with the title of senior analyst, but according to my sources, you spend most of your time playing golf and taking long lunches. Your salary is $275,000 annually, which is about 3 times what someone of your actual skill level should be making. How do you? I know everything. Min Jun's smile was razor-sharp. You have a trust fund of approximately $1.2 million that you gain access to when you turn 35. You're currently engaged to Jessica Chung, daughter of Chung Daitzing, CEO of Chung Tech Industries. A very strategic engagement, I'm sure. Her family's connections, your family's investment firm, a perfect merger. Jessica was crying now, silent tears streaming down her perfect makeup. Except Jessica doesn't know about your pattern, does she? Doesn't know that before her you've conned at least 4 other women that my people have found so far. Probably more that haven't come forward out of shame or fear. Min Jun pulled up his phone again. Would you like to see the files, bank transfers, security footage, testimonies? Please, Marcus whispered. Please, I'm sorry, I was young and stupid, I've changed. You assaulted my wife an hour ago in a grocery store, Min Jun cut him off. What part of that demonstrates change? He had no answer. Min Jun turned to Jessica. Miss Chong, you're free to go. I suggest you call your father's lawyers. You'll want to break off this engagement as publicly as possible to avoid any taint from association. Is it true? Jessica asked, her voice breaking. Everything she said, everything you said. Marcus looked at her, seemed to consider lying, then just slumped. I needed the money, I have expenses, and my allowance wasn't enough. Jessica slapped him, the crack of her palm against his cheek echoed through the empty store. We're done, my father will hear about this, your father will hear about this, everyone will hear about this. She walked out, her heels clicking on the tile floor, her spine straight despite the tears. Now then, Min Jun gestured to his men, take Mr. Wellington to the back office. Carefully, I don't want a single mark on him that I didn't put there myself. 2 men grabbed Marcus by the arms and began dragging him toward the back of the store. He struggled, his expensive shoes squeaking on the floor. Wait, you can't do this, this is kidnapping, assault, I'll call the police. Please do, Min Jun said mildly. Ask for Captain Lee, he's a personal friend, or try Detective Park. His daughter goes to the same academy as my niece. Or perhaps you'd prefer Chief Prosecutor Kim, I had dinner with him last week. The implication was clear, the police wouldn't help, no one would help. Amara watched Marcus being dragged away and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no pity, just a cold, distant curiosity about how she'd ever loved someone so thoroughly worthless. Do you want to be there, Min Jun asked her quietly, when I talk to him? She considered it, part of her wanted to watch Marcus face consequences, wanted to see him broken the way he'd broken her, but a larger part just wanted to go home, take a shower and forget this day had ever happened. No, she said finally, I don't need to see it, I just need to know it's handled. It will be, Min Jun cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing over the cut on her cheek. I promise you, sweetheart, he will never hurt you again, never hurt anyone again. What are you going to do to him? Nothing permanent, nothing he doesn't deserve, but by the time I'm finished, Marcus Wellington will understand exactly what it means to have everything taken from him. Min Jun pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. Jean will take you home, Dr. Shin is already waiting, I'll be back in a few hours. Min Jun. I need to do this, Amara, not just for you, for every woman he's hurt, for every life he's destroyed while facing zero consequences. His eyes were hard again, the gentle husband replaced by the underground king. Do you trust me? With my life. Then go home, rest, let me handle this. Amara nodded. Jean appeared at her elbow, ready to escort her, but she paused at the door, turned back to look at her husband. Don't kill him, she said quietly. Min Jun smiled. I won't, death would be too easy, I'm going to make him live with what he's done, make him face it every single day for the rest of his miserable life. And somehow, that was more terrifying than any death threat could have been. The drive home was a blur. Jean drove in silence, his eyes constantly checking mirrors, assessing threats. Taeyang followed in a second vehicle. The protocol for protecting Mrs. Kong never varied, never faltered. Their home, she still sometimes couldn't believe she got to call it that, was a fortress disguised as a luxury penthouse. Top floor of the most exclusive building in Gangnam, with security that would make the president jealous. Min Jun had insisted on it, had insisted on everything that kept her safe, that kept her comfortable, that helped her heal. Dr. Shin was waiting in the living room, her medical bag already open. She was an older woman, kind-faced, who asked no questions and kept all of Min Jun's secrets. "Mrs. Kong," she said gently, "let me take a look at you." Amara sat on the cream-colored sofa that probably cost more than her entire first apartment and let the doctor examine her. Dr. Shin cataloged each injury with clinical precision, photographing bruises, cleaning cuts, checking for signs of concussion. "Mild contusion on the right shoulder, bruised ribs, possibly cracked, but I'll need an X-ray to be certain. Laceration on the left cheek, no stitches needed. Bruising on the left hip and thigh, minor cuts on both hands from the glass." Dr. Shin typed notes into her tablet. "You were lucky, Mrs. Kong, it could have been much worse." Lucky? Amara almost laughed. Was it luck that she'd run into the man who'd destroyed her life in a grocery store? Was it luck that he'd assaulted her in front of witnesses? Or was it something else, something darker and more fateful? "Mr. Kong will want a full report," Dr. Shin said, packing up her supplies. "I'm prescribing pain medication and a muscle relaxant. No strenuous activity for at least a week. If the rib pain worsens or you have difficulty breathing, call me immediately." "Thank you, Dr. Shin." The doctor paused at the door. "Mrs. Kong, for what it's worth, I'm glad you're safe, and I'm glad you have Mr. Kong to protect you. Not many people are fortunate enough to be so fiercely loved." After she left, Amora sat in the silence of the penthouse and tried to process what had happened. Her hands were shaking. Her entire body was shaking. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind exhaustion and a strange, hollow feeling. She stood, wincing at the pain in her ribs, and made her way to the bathroom. Their bathroom, with its marble counters and rainfall shower and bathtub big enough for two. She stripped off her ruined dress, let it fall to the floor in a milk-stained heap, and looked at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back was covered in bruises, but underneath those marks, underneath the cuts and swelling, was someone Marcus had never known, someone stronger, someone who'd survived. Amara stepped into the shower and let the hot water pour over her. Let it wash away the blood, the milk, the feeling of Marcus's hands shoving her. Let it all spiral down the drain until she felt almost clean again. Meanwhile, across the city, in the back office of an upscale grocery store, Kong Min Jun stood over Marcus Wellington and felt the cold satisfaction of absolute power. Marcus was zip-tied to a chair, his expensive suit rumpled, his face red and blotchy from crying. Two of Min Jun's men flanked the door. No one was coming to save him, no one even knew where he was. "Let me tell you how this is going to work," Min Jun said, his voice calm and measured. "I'm going to ask you questions, you're going to answer them truthfully, and then I'm going to explain exactly how I'm going to dismantle your entire existence." "You're insane," Marcus spat. "You can't just..." Min Jun moved faster than Marcus could track, his hand connecting with Marcus's face in a measured strike. Not enough to break anything, just enough to hurt, to establish dominance. "I wasn't finished speaking," Min Jun said pleasantly. "Interrupting me again would be a mistake, do you understand?" Marcus nodded, blood trickling from his split lip. "Good, now let's start with the basics. How many women have you conned?" "I don't." Another strike, this one made Marcus's head snap to the side. "How many women, Marcus?" "6, Marcus gasped. "Maybe 7, I don't remember all of them." "You don't remember?" Min Jun's voice dropped to something arctic. "You don't remember the women whose lives you destroyed, the women you stole from, the women you left homeless and broken? They're that forgettable to you?" "It wasn't personal, I needed money and they had it. It's not like I forced them." "You conned them, manipulated them, made them fall in love with you, and then stole everything they had." Min Jun leaned down until they were eye to eye. "My wife was pregnant with your child. Did you know she almost died, that she hemorrhaged so badly she needed a transfusion, that she lost so much blood the doctors weren't sure she'd make it?" Marcus's face had gone pale. "I didn't know, how could I have known? She never told me." "She never got the chance to tell you because you ran like a coward in the middle of the night." Min Jun's composure cracked for just a moment, rage bleeding through. "You left a note, Thanks for the free ride. Those were your last words to a woman carrying your child. I was 29, I wasn't ready to be a father, she should have been more careful. The next hit was harder. Min Jun heard something crack. Good. Let me be very clear about something, Min Jun said, his voice deadly quiet again. You will never speak about my wife like that again, you will never blame her for your actions. You will take responsibility for what you did, or I will make the rest of your very short life so unbearable that you'll beg me to end it. Marcus was sobbing now, his nose clearly broken, blood streaming down his face. What do you want from me? Money, I'll pay you. I don't want your money, Marcus, I have more money than you could earn in 10 lifetimes. Min Jun pulled up a chair and sat down, crossing his legs casually as if they were having tea. What I want is justice. What I want is for you to understand that actions have consequences. What I want is for every woman you've ever hurt to see you brought low. Please, Marcus begged. Please, I'm sorry, I'll apologize to her. I'll apologize to all of them, just let me go. Oh, you will apologize, publicly, thoroughly, but first let me tell you what's going to happen to your life. Min Jun pulled out his phone and began scrolling. Jessica Chang is already on her way to her father's office. By tomorrow morning, your engagement will be broken off via a very public social media post detailing exactly why she can no longer associate with you. Marcus's eyes widened. Your father's firm? I've already called in his gambling debts. 40 million won due immediately. He'll have to liquidate assets to pay it off. I'm betting one of those assets will be your salary. You'll be out of a job by Monday. No, you can't. Your trust fund? I've had my lawyers review the terms. Turns out there's a morality clause. If you're convicted of any crime, you forfeit the entire amount. And Marcus assaulting my wife in a grocery store? Min Jun smiled. That's on camera, multiple angles, multiple witnesses. I'll fight the charges, I'll say it was an accident, that she what? Threw herself into a refrigerated case? The footage clearly shows you shoving her. Your fingerprints are on her shoulders where you grabbed her. There's no way out of this, Marcus. You're done. The reality of it was sinking in now. Min Jun could see it in Marcus's eyes, the dawning horror of understanding that his charmed life was over. But wait, Min Jun continued, enjoying himself now. There's more. I've had my people contact every single woman you've conned. Evelyn Park, Min Seo Kim, Sarah Chen, and 3 others you probably forgot about. Want to know what we're doing for them? Marcus said nothing, just stared with hollow eyes. We're helping them file civil suits against you for theft, fraud, emotional distress. We're providing them with the best lawyers money can buy, and we're going to make sure their stories are heard. Social media, news outlets, everywhere. By the time we're done, your name will be synonymous with predatory con artist. Why are you doing this? Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. Just because I dated your wife years ago. No, Min Jun stood, looming over the broken man. Because you destroyed her. Because you took a kind, trusting woman and broke her so completely that she wanted to die. Because you killed your own child through your selfishness and cruelty. Because you've hurt 6 or 7 women that we know of and God knows how many more. He leaned down, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more menace than any shout. And because I have the power to make you face consequences for once in your privileged, parasitic life. Because someone needs to stop you before you hurt anyone else. And because it will bring my wife peace to know that you can never do this to another woman. Min Jun straightened, brushed off his suit. You'll be released in an hour, go home, tell your father what happened, explain to him why his business is about to collapse, watch everything you've ever taken for granted crumble around you, and know that it's your own fault, that you brought this on yourself the moment you put your hands on my wife. What if I run? Marcus asked desperately. What if I leave Korea, start over somewhere else? Then I'll find you, I have connections in every major city in the world. You could run to Antarctica and I'd still find you. And when I did, what's happening now would seem like mercy compared to what comes next. Min Jun turned toward the door. 1 hour, then you're free to go experience the consequences of your actions. I'd suggest you use that hour to think about how you want to spend the rest of your miserable life, because it's going to be very different from the one you had this morning. He left Marcus sobbing in the chair, zip-tied and broken, and felt absolutely no remorse. By the time Min Jun returned home, it was early evening. The sun was setting over Seoul, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. He found Amara on the balcony, wrapped in a soft blanket, staring out at the city. She didn't turn when he approached, but she leaned back against him when he wrapped his arms around her from behind. Is it done? She asked quietly. It's done. He knows what's coming. By tomorrow, his entire world will be burning down around him. Good, there was no venom in her voice, just tired satisfaction. Did you hurt him? Yes. Good, she said again. They stood in silence for a while, watching the city lights blink on one by one as darkness fell. Min Jun pressed a kiss to the top of her head, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, grateful that she was here, safe, alive. I was thinking, Amara said eventually, about all those other women, the ones he hurt. What about them? I want to help them, not just with the lawsuits. I want to do something more, something lasting. She turned in his arms to face him. I want to start a foundation for women who have been financially abused, who have been conned or stolen from or left with nothing. I want to give them the help I wish I'd had 3 years ago. Min Jun studied her face, seeing the determination there, the strength that had drawn him to her in that alley 2 years ago. Even bleeding and broken, she'd had that core of steel that refused to stay down. Tell me what you need, he said simply. A building, staff, funding, legal resources, therapists, job training programs, childcare for women with kids, safe housing for those who need it. Her eyes shone with purpose. I want to turn my pain into something that helps others. I want Marcus's cruelty to lead to something good. Done. Min Jun cupped her face gently, mindful of her injuries. Whatever you need, it's yours. We'll call it the Second Chances Foundation, because that's what you give people. Hope, second chances, the opportunity to rebuild. Amara smiled, really smiled, for the first time since the grocery store. I love you, you know that, right? I love you so much it terrifies me sometimes. I know, I love you too, more than I thought I was capable of loving anyone. He kissed her softly, carefully. Now come inside, you need to eat something and take your pain medication, Dr. Shin's orders. Bossy, she teased, but let him lead her back into the penthouse. He made her favorite meal, or rather, he supervised while their chef made it, because Min Jun's idea of cooking was reheating takeout. They ate on the sofa, Amara curled against his side, her head on his shoulder. What happens now? She asked between bites. With Marcus, I mean. Now we wait for the dominoes to fall. Min Jun set down his fork and pulled out his phone. It's already starting. Jessica posted this an hour ago. He showed her the screen. Jessica's Instagram post had gone viral, over 1 million likes already. The caption was simple but devastating. I've ended my engagement to Marcus Wellington after discovering he has a history of conning and financially abusing women. I was fooled by his charm, but I won't be complicit in his abuse. To the women he hurt, I believe you, I'm sorry, and I hope you find the justice you deserve. Below it were screenshots, bank transfers from Marcus to his account from Jessica's, messages where he'd asked for loans he never intended to repay, evidence of his manipulation. She's brave, Amara said softly. It takes courage to admit you were fooled. She learned from the best. Min Jun squeezed her hand. Tomorrow the news outlets will pick it up. By the weekend, everyone in Seoul will know what Marcus Wellington is. And he was right. By morning the story had exploded across every platform. The hashtag grocery store assault was trending worldwide with over 15 million views. Multiple angles of the assault had been posted by witnesses. The footage was damning, Marcus clearly shoving Amara, her body crashing into the refrigerated case, his sneer as he stood over her. But it wasn't just the assault. Someone had leaked everything, Marcus's full history, his pattern of conning women, bank records showing the thefts, testimonials from his victims, medical records from Amara's hospitalization 3 years ago after her miscarriage. Everything was there, laid bare for the world to see. Amara sat at the breakfast table, scrolling through her phone with a mixture of shock and grim satisfaction. Min Jun sat across from her, reading the morning news on his tablet, looking completely unsurprised by the public explosion. Did you do this? She asked, gesturing to her phone where victim after victim was coming forward with their stories. Did you leak all of this? I may have made some strategic phone calls to journalists I know, Min Jun said mildly, sipping his coffee. I may have provided them with thoroughly documented evidence, and I may have suggested that this was a story the public needed to hear. The medical records, those are supposed to be confidential. Money and power make a lot of things possible, sweetheart. Nothing illegal, I assure you, just persuasive. He set down his tablet. Are you angry? Amara thought about it. Was she angry that her most painful moment was now public knowledge, that millions of strangers knew about her miscarriage, her homelessness, her trauma? No, she said finally, I'm not angry because maybe my story will help someone else. Maybe another woman will see what happened to me and realize she's not alone, that it's not her fault, that she can survive and rebuild. That's my girl. Min Jun reached across the table to take her hand. Strong and compassionate even when you have every right to want blood. Oh, I want blood, Amara said with a dark smile. I just want it to mean something. Her phone buzzed, a call from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello. Mrs. Kong, a woman's voice shaking and tearful. My name is Evelyn Park. I'm one of the women Marcus Wellington stole from. I wanted to call and say thank you for coming forward, for not staying silent. I've been carrying the shame of what he did to me for 5 years, thinking it was my fault for being stupid enough to trust him. But seeing your story, seeing that he did this to so many of us, it's like I can finally breathe. Amara felt tears prick her eyes. You have nothing to thank me for and nothing to be ashamed of. He's a predator. What he did to you, to me, to all of us, that's on him, not us. I know that now. Your husband's lawyers contacted me yesterday. They're helping me file charges, civil and criminal. I never thought I'd get justice, but now, Evelyn's voice broke, now maybe I will. You will, Amara promised. I'll make sure of it. After they hung up, Amara looked at Min Jun. I need to meet them, all of his victims. I need to hear their stories and I need them to know they're not alone. I'll arrange it. Min Jun was already typing on his phone. We'll host it here this week, safe and private. But the public reckoning was far from over. By noon, Wellington investment firm had released a statement terminating Marcus's employment effective immediately. His father had issued a terse press release about being deeply disappointed and seeking to make amends to those harmed. By evening, Marcus's trust fund had been frozen pending the criminal investigation. His apartment, paid for by his father, was being emptied of his belongings. His car had been repossessed. His credit cards had been canceled. Min Jun received a phone call just as they were sitting down to dinner. He glanced at the screen and smiled coldly. It's Marcus's father, he said. Should I answer? Put it on speaker, Amara said. I want to hear this. Min Jun answered, Mr. Wellington, I was wondering when you'd call. Mr. Kong, Robert Wellington's voice was strained, trying for diplomatic but failing. I think we need to discuss this situation, man to man. I don't negotiate with men who raise sons like Marcus. My son made mistakes, serious mistakes, but this public destruction, surely we can come to some arrangement, financial compensation for your wife, a private settlement. This doesn't need to be so messy. Messy? Min Jun's voice dropped to something dangerous. Your son nearly killed my wife 3 years ago. She lost their child because of his abandonment and cruelty. She was homeless, starving, she wanted to die. And yesterday he assaulted her in a grocery store. You think that deserves a quiet settlement? I'm prepared to offer 5 million won, 10 million, name your price. My price? Min Jun laughed and Amara felt a chill run down her spine at the sound. My price is your son's complete and utter ruin. My price is justice for every woman he's hurt. My price is making sure he never does this to anyone else. Be reasonable, he's my son. And Amara is my wife, my life, the woman I would burn the world for. So no, Mr. Wellington, there will be no settlement, no quiet resolution. Your son will face every consequence of his actions. He will apologize publicly. He will enter therapy. He will make restitution to his victims, and he will never ever come near my wife again. You're making a mistake. I have resources, connections. I can make things very difficult for you. Try. The word was a challenge, an invitation. Please try, because I would love an excuse to destroy you too. Your firm is already teetering thanks to your gambling debts. One push and it all comes down. So please threaten me again, give me a reason. Silence on the other end. Then, what do you want from him? A public apology, video recorded, posted to social media. He will admit to everything he's done. He will name his victims and apologize specifically to each of them. He will announce that he's entering a year-long residential therapy program for his behavior, and he will establish a fund, 1 million won from his trust fund, to help support women who have been victims of financial abuse. That's nearly everything he has. That's the point. He took everything from these women. Now he'll understand how that feels, and if he or you or anyone associated with your family ever speaks negatively about my wife, ever implies she's lying or exaggerating, the consequences will be exponentially worse. Do you understand? Another long silence, then defeated, I understand. Good, you have 48 hours to produce the video, post it on all of Marcus's social media accounts. If I don't see it by Friday evening, I release information about your gambling addiction, your firm's actual financial status, and some very interesting photographs from your trips to Macau. Are we clear? Crystal clear. Min Jun ended the call and set his phone down gently. Well, that was satisfying. Amara was staring at him with a mixture of awe and slight concern. You had photographs. Of course I have photographs, I always have insurance. He reached for his wine glass. Now where were we? Ah yes, you were telling me about your plans for the foundation's curriculum. She shook her head, laughing despite everything. You're terrifying, you know that. Only to people who deserve it, he said, smiling at her with such warmth it was hard to reconcile with the ice-cold voice he'd just used. To you, I'm just your devoted husband who happens to be very good at ruining people's lives. My hero, she said dryly, but she was smiling too. 2 days later, Marcus Wellington posted his apology video. It went viral within hours, racked up millions of views, became the most talked-about story in Korea. Amara watched it alone in Min Jun's office while he handled business calls in the next room. Marcus looked terrible. His face was bruised from Min Jun's interrogation, though carefully covered with makeup. His eyes were hollow, his voice shaking as he read from what was clearly a prepared script. My name is Marcus Wellington and I'm a predator. The words seemed to physically pain him. For the past 6 years, I have systematically targeted, manipulated, and financially abused at least 7 women. I made them fall in love with me, moved into their homes, stole their money, and abandoned them when I'd taken everything I could. He listed them by name: Evelyn Park, Min Seo Kim, Sarah Chen, 3 others Amara hadn't known about, and then his voice breaking. Amara Kong, formerly Amara Hayes, I stole from her. I got her pregnant and abandoned her when she needed me most. My actions directly led to the loss of her child and nearly cost her her life. She was homeless because of me. She suffered because of me. And 3 days ago I assaulted her in a grocery store because I couldn't handle seeing that she'd survived me. Tears were streaming down his face now. Real ones, Amara thought, fear and shame and the crushing weight of consequences finally catching up. I am deeply, profoundly sorry, not because I got caught, not because I'm facing legal consequences, but because I hurt people, I destroyed lives. I took advantage of trust and kindness and love, and I turned those beautiful things into weapons. He took a shuddering breath. I'm entering a year-long residential therapy program to address my behavior. I'm establishing a 1,000,001 fund to help women who have been victims of financial abuse. And I'm dedicating the rest of my life to making amends, though I know nothing I do can undo the harm I've caused. The video ended. The comments section was already flooded with thousands of responses, some sympathetic, most rightfully furious, many from women sharing their own stories of financial abuse and manipulation. Amora closed her laptop and found that she felt empty, not satisfied, not vindicated, just tired and ready to move forward. Min Jun appeared in the doorway. You watched it. I watched it. How do you feel? Like I want to stop thinking about Marcus Wellington and start building something that matters. She stood, walked over to him. The foundation, when can we start? Tomorrow if you want. I've already had my people scout buildings. There's a property in Gangnam near the women's shelter, 4 stories, perfect for what you have in mind. He pulled out his tablet, showed her photos. Ground floor for intake and counseling, 2nd floor for job training and education programs, 3rd floor for temporary housing, 4th floor for administrative offices. Amara studied the images, her mind already racing with possibilities. It's perfect. How soon can we acquire it? It's already yours, deed transferred this morning. Min Jun set the tablet down and pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. But before we dive into foundation work, I have something for you. Inside was a pendant, a phoenix rising from flames, crafted in white gold and diamonds, its wings spread wide. You rose from the ashes of what Marcus did to you, Min Jun said softly, fastening it around her neck. You rebuilt yourself into something stronger, more beautiful, more powerful than he could ever have imagined. This is to remind you that you're not defined by what was done to you, you're defined by how you survived it. Amara touched the pendant, feeling the weight of it, the meaning. Thank you for everything, for saving me, for loving me, for helping me turn my pain into purpose. You saved yourself, sweetheart. I just gave you a safe place to heal. He kissed her forehead. Now let's go change some lives. The next 3 months were a whirlwind of activity. The building was renovated and equipped. Staff were hired, therapists, job counselors, legal advocates, childcare providers. Amara threw herself into the work with a passion that sometimes worried Min Jun, though he understood it. This was her healing. This was how she reclaimed her power. They met with Marcus's victims one by one and then as a group. 7 women, 7 stories, 7 lives interrupted by the same predator. But together they found strength, found community, found the courage to press charges and testify and refuse to be ashamed anymore. The lawsuits proceeded. Marcus lost every single one. Between the judgments, legal fees, and the foundation fund, he was left with almost nothing. His father's firm barely survived, downsized, and diminished. Marcus himself disappeared from public view, though rumors placed him in a therapy facility somewhere in the countryside. Amara didn't care where he was irrelevant now, a footnote in her history, not the defining chapter. The Second Chances Foundation opened on a cold December morning, exactly 3 months after the grocery store incident. The building was beautiful, welcoming, filled with light and the promise of hope. Media coverage was extensive. Everyone wanted to interview the woman who'd turned her trauma into action. Amara stood at the podium during the opening ceremony, looking out at the crowd of supporters, donors, and the 7 women who'd started this journey with her. 3 years ago, I was homeless, she began, her voice steady and clear. I was broken. I'd lost my child, my home, my sense of self. I wanted to die because I couldn't see a way forward. I couldn't imagine surviving the pain. She paused, finding Min Jun in the crowd. He smiled at her, encouraging. But I did survive, with help, with support, with someone who saw value in me when I couldn't see it in myself. And I learned that survival isn't just about enduring, it's about transforming. It's about taking what hurt you and using it to help others. Her hand went to the phoenix pendant at her throat. This foundation exists because 7 women, myself included, refused to stay silent about what was done to us. We refuse to accept that financial abuse is somehow less serious than other forms of violence. We refuse to let shame keep us from seeking justice. Her voice grew stronger. And now we're here to help other women do the same. To give them resources, support, and the message that they are not alone, that they can survive, that they can rebuild, that they deserve second chances. The applause was deafening. Amara saw tears on faces in the crowd, saw women nodding, saw hope kindling in eyes that had been hopeless. After the ceremony, as the crowd mingled and toured the facility, a young woman approached Amara hesitantly. Mrs. Kong, I'm sorry to bother you, but I needed to thank you. She was barely 20, Amara guessed with fearful eyes and trembling hands. My boyfriend stole 12,000 won from me last month and kicked me out. I've been sleeping in my car. I didn't know where to go or what to do, but I saw your story and I called the foundation hotline this morning. Amara took her hands gently. What's your name? Jaiwon. Jaiwon, you're not a bother, you're exactly why we're here. She gestured to one of the intake counselors. This is Ms. Park. She's going to help you, get you a safe place to stay tonight, start working on a plan. You're going to be okay, I promise. Jaiwon burst into tears and Amara held her while she cried, remembering what it felt like to be that lost, that scared, that alone. Later that evening, Min Jun found Amara on the foundation's rooftop garden, watching the sun set over Seoul. He wrapped his coat around her shoulders and pulled her close. Successful first day, he observed. We helped 8 women today, 8 women who walked through our doors desperate and left with hope, with resources, with a plan. Amara leaned into his warmth. It's not enough, it'll never be enough, but it's a start. It's more than a start, it's a revolution. Min Jun kissed the top of her head. You're changing lives, sweetheart. You're making sure what happened to you never has to happen to anyone else. We're making sure, she corrected. I couldn't have done any of this without you. Maybe, but I'm just the money and the muscle. You're the heart, you're the reason any of this matters. He turned her to face him. I'm so proud of you, of who you are, of who you've become. Amara touched his face, this man who'd saved her, loved her, empowered her. I used to think Marcus destroyed me, that he took everything and left me with nothing, but I was wrong. Where are you? He tried to destroy me, but he failed, because the core of who I am, the strength, the compassion, the will to survive, he couldn't touch that, he couldn't take that, she smiled. All he did was show me how strong I actually am, how much I could endure and still come out the other side. And look at you now, building empires, saving lives, being far more of a queen than I ever could have imagined when I found you in that alley. About that, Amara's smile turned mischievous. I've been thinking about expanding, opening more locations, hiring more staff, maybe starting programs in other cities. Min Jun groaned dramatically. My ambitious wife is going to bankrupt me. Please, you own half of Seoul's underground economy. I think you can afford a few more foundation locations. For you, I'd fund 1,000 foundations. He kissed her softly. Whatever you need, whatever you dream, I'll make it happen. They stood together as night fell, watching their city light up, and Amara felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not just happiness or contentment, but genuine peace. The kind that comes from knowing you've survived the worst and come out stronger. The kind that comes from turning pain into purpose. Her phone buzzed, an email notification. She almost ignored it, but the sender name caught her eye. Marcus Wellington. She stiffened, and Min Jun noticed immediately. What is it? Marcus sent me an email. Her finger hovered over the delete button. Do you want to read it? I don't know, she looked up at him. Part of me wants to delete it without reading, to not give him even a moment of my time or attention, but another part is curious, Min Jun finished. It's okay to be curious, sweetheart, it's okay to want closure, but remember you don't owe him anything, not forgiveness, not acknowledgement, nothing. Amara took a breath and opened the email. The message was short. Amara, I know I have no right to contact you, I know you owe me nothing. But I needed to tell you that I watched the foundation's opening on the news today. I saw you speak. I saw the women you're helping. I saw what you've built from the ashes of what I destroyed. I'm in therapy now, real therapy, not just because a judge ordered it, but because I finally understand what I am, what I did. The therapist says I have narcissistic personality disorder, among other things. That doesn't excuse anything, but it explains some of it. I'll be here for the next year, probably longer, working on myself, trying to understand how I became someone who could hurt people the way I hurt you, the way I hurt so many others. I don't expect forgiveness, I don't deserve it, but I wanted you to know that what you've done, the foundation, the advocacy, the refusal to stay silent, it matters. You're saving people. You're preventing other men like me from destroying other women like the ones I hurt. I'm sorry, I know those words are meaningless coming from me, I know they don't undo anything, but I needed to say them anyway. I hope you have a beautiful life, Amara, you deserve it. You deserved it back then and you deserve it now. Marcus. Amara read it twice, feeling nothing, no anger, no satisfaction, no forgiveness, just a distant acknowledgement that this person who had once meant everything to her was now nothing more than a cautionary tale. What does it say? Min Jun asked gently. An apology, acknowledgement, some explanation about therapy and diagnosis. She put her phone away. It doesn't matter, he doesn't matter, not anymore. Are you going to respond? No, the answer came easily, surely. He's not part of my life anymore, not part of my future. Responding would just give him space in my head that he doesn't deserve. She turned back to the city lights. I'm done with Marcus Wellington, I'm done letting him take up any of my energy or time, I have more important things to do. Like what? Like planning our expansion to Busan, like hearing 10 more counselors, like making sure Jaiwon and every woman like her has somewhere safe to go, Amara smiled. Like loving my husband and building a life that means something. Min Jun pulled her close and they stood together in the growing darkness, surrounded by the city Min Jun ruled and the foundation Amara had built. Two souls who'd found each other in darkness and created light. I love you, Min Jun said softly, my phoenix, my queen, my Amara. I love you too, my protector, my partner, my home. And in that moment, standing on the rooftop of a building dedicated to second chances, Amara realized something profound. Marcus hadn't destroyed her 3 years ago in that apartment when he'd left her pregnant and penniless. He hadn't destroyed her yesterday in that grocery store when he'd shoved her into the refrigerated case. He'd never had that power, had never been strong enough or significant enough to break the core of who she was. She'd survived because she was a survivor. She'd healed because she was resilient. She'd thrived because she refused to let anyone, not Marcus, not trauma, not circumstance, define her worth or her future. The grocery store incident wasn't the story of how Marcus Wellington destroyed Amara Kong. It was the story of how Amara Kong rose from the ashes of what Marcus tried to do to her, took back her power, and used it to change the world. 6 months later, the Second Chances Foundation had helped over 200 women. They'd opened 2 more locations. Amara had become a sought-after speaker on financial abuse and recovery. Several of Marcus's victims had become counselors themselves, turning their pain into purpose just as Amara had. Marcus remained in therapy, a broken man trying to rebuild himself into something less toxic. His father's business had recovered slightly, though they'd never regained their former status. Jessica Chong had become an advocate herself, using her platform to educate young women about the warning signs of financial predators. And Amara woke up every morning next to the man she loved, kissed him goodbye as he went to manage his empire, and headed to the foundation to change lives. She wore her phoenix pendant every day. She thought about the baby she'd lost, sometimes with sadness but no longer with crushing grief. She thought about the woman she'd been 3 years ago and felt proud of how far she'd come. On the 6-month anniversary of the grocery store incident, Min Jun took her back to that same store. She'd been avoiding it, unconsciously taking different routes to avoid driving past it, but he insisted. They walked through the doors together, his hand firmly in hers. The manager recognized them immediately, bowed deeply. "Mrs. Kong, Mr. Kong, it's an honor." They walked to the dairy aisle, to the exact spot where Marcus had shoved her, where she'd fallen, where her old life had ended and her new life had truly begun. "How do you feel?" Min Jun asked. Amara looked at the refrigerated case, now repaired and restocked, looked at the pristine floor where she'd bled, looked at the space that had held so much violence and pain. "I feel free," she said simply. "This place doesn't have power over me anymore. He doesn't have power over me anymore. I took it all back." Min Jun smiled and kissed her hand. "That's my girl." They did their shopping together, filling a cart with ingredients for dinner. Ordinary, domestic, beautiful in its simplicity. When they checked out, the cashier recognized Amara. "You're the lady from the foundation," she said shyly. "My sister went there last month. You saved her life." "She saved her own life," Amara corrected gently. "We just gave her the tools to do it." As they loaded groceries into Min Jun's SUV, Amara looked back at the store one last time. No fear, no trauma, just a building, just a place where she'd once fallen and then stood back up stronger. "Ready to go home?" Min Jun asked. "Ready," Amara said, and meant it in every possible way. She was ready to go home, ready to move forward, ready to keep building and growing and helping, ready to live the life she'd earned through survival and strength and refusing to stay broken. The grocery store incident had been the catalyst, but it wasn't her story. Her story was bigger than that. It was about resilience and recovery, about taking back power from those who tried to steal it, about transforming pain into purpose and trauma into triumph. It was about a woman who'd lost everything and built something even better from the ruins. It was about love that healed and protected without smothering. It was about justice that meant something and consequences that mattered. It was about second chances and the courage to take them. And as they drove away from that grocery store, toward their home and their future and their foundation and all the lives they would touch together, Amara knew that her story was far from over. It was only just beginning. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching Amara's story. Her journey from victim to survivor to advocate shows us that we're never defined by what's done to us, but by how we rise from it. If this story moved you, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss another story. Drop a comment below telling me what you think about Amara's transformation, and share this video with someone who needs to hear that survival is possible. Remember, you are stronger than whatever tried to break you. And sometimes the best revenge is building a life so beautiful that your past becomes irrelevant. Until next time, keep rising.